kicked out as a teenager due to false rumors spread by my brother. Years later, after seeing my success, my parents demanded money despite having abandoned me. Hey there, I'm a 28-year-old woman and I have a twin brother. Growing up, the difference in how our parents treated us was crazy. For some bizarre reason, they were convinced my brother was destined for greatness, while I was dubbed the black sheep just because I preferred playing sports and making new friends over hitting the books. The constant comparisons were a killer for my self-esteem from a young age. Every birthday, my brother got these extravagant parties, while I felt like an afterthought. He had sleepovers with his friends, but I wasn't even allowed to bring my pals over. Honestly, I hated my childhood. The only bright spot was my grandmother. She'd bring me my favorite chocolates and occasionally sneak me a few bucks so I could treat myself. As the years went by, this blatant favoritism morphed into emotional abuse directed at me. My parents openly mocked my grades and belittled my hobbies. No matter how hard I tried, I could never meet their expectations of being the perfect child. I was good at sports, but they wouldn't let me participate in extracurricular activities because they wanted me to focus on studies, just like my brother. It was so frustrating and left me feeling helpless. Things only got worse in my sophomore year when I got grounded for having Snapchat on my phone. I hadn't done anything wrong. I just downloaded the app to stay connected with my friends, like every other teenager. But my parents lost it. They threw my stuff around, took my door off its hinges, and told me I had no privacy as long as I lived under their roof. Instead of supporting me, my twin brother made my life even more miserable. He took advantage of the toxic environment our parents created, lying about me and accusing me of things I never did so he could skate by unnoticed. He'd steal something and blame it on me, and our parents, already inclined to believe the worst about me, would buy it. He'd make fun of my appearance in front of my friends at school, but thankfully I had a wide circle of friends because I was approachable and liked making connections. My brother, however, struggled socially and resented my ease with people. His jealousy hit a boiling point on our 14th birthday. None of his friends showed up, but my friends took me out for ice cream, and I had a blast. This infuriated him, and he started spreading false rumors at school, painting me as a spoiled brat who allegedly abused him at home. He even went so far as to punch himself, giving himself black eyes and bruises, and then flaunted these self-inflicted injuries as proof of my supposed violence. People started to believe his twisted stories, and whispers began circulating. Even my friends began to look at me with suspicion. Invitations to hangouts became fewer, and folks who once chatted with me started to keep their distance. One day, I asked my ex-best friend what had changed, and she spilled the beans about the rumors my brother had been spreading. I was floored, a mix of disbelief and betrayal washing over me. My own twin was spreading lies about me. When I confronted my brother, he just ignored me and smirked, saying I deserved to rot alone. I was scared and didn't know what to do. I was afraid our parents would believe him over me. The isolation stung, especially since I was always open to making friends. Teachers heard the rumors too, and it felt like I was living in some parallel reality. Then my worst nightmare came true. The principal called me, my brother, and our parents into his office to discuss the rumors. Heart-pounding, I hoped my brother would finally come clean, but instead, he doubled down, spinning more lies and painting me as a bully. My mom started crying, and I just couldn't believe what was happening. It was like my whole world was falling apart. So get this, my brother was spinning some crazy story, and everyone was treating him like some kind of hero. My dad was all over it, telling my brother how brave he was for speaking up and promising nothing bad would happen to him after that day. Meanwhile, I was desperately trying to defend myself, pleading with the principal that my brother was making it all up. It felt like I was drowning in accusations, struggling to keep my head above water. But my brother just kept at it, painting me as this furious, violent person who took out my frustrations on him daily. Mom was in tears, holding onto my brother and giving me these harsh, accusing looks. It was like trying to punch through a brick wall of belief in my brother's made-up story. The principal scolded me, saying the school had zero tolerance for bullying and that I could get suspended. I was practically begging him not to suspend me, tears streaming down my face, but he just shook his head, saying he couldn't overlook it. I was suspended for 10 days and it hit me hard. I was crying even more, pleading for him to reconsider, but it was no use. My parents, angry and embarrassed, dragged me out of the office. I didn't want to leave. I wanted to plead my case and make them understand, but they weren't having any of it. We left the school and I was a wreck, frustrated, humiliated, you name it. When we got home, things went from bad to worse. Out of nowhere, my dad started packing up my stuff. I was shocked, confused, no clue what was happening. My mom asked him what he was doing and he just shouted that I couldn't live in the same house as my brother anymore. I was crying, practically on my knees, begging my brother to tell the truth. But he stayed cold and unmoved. Dad kept packing my things and threw my suitcase into the foyer. I clung to his legs, still begging him not to throw me out. It was like a nightmare. He told me a bully like me didn't deserve to live in his house and said he'd call my grandmother to come get me if she wanted. It felt like my world was crumbling beneath me. I stood there, in shock, surrounded by my scattered belongings, kicked out of my own home. Eventually, my grandmother showed up. She helped me gather my stuff and got me into the car, making sure I was buckled in before heading to my parents' door. She rang the doorbell, and when Dad opened it, she laid into him. With stern determination, she warned him that if he ever approached me or tried to contact me again, she wouldn't hesitate to involve the police or CPS. Mom tried to deflect the blame onto me, but Grandma wasn't buying it. She stood her ground, defending me, saying I was just a child who didn't deserve such heartless treatment. That was the first time I felt how powerful my grandmother was. Unlike my parents, she trusted me. We drove away from the only home I'd ever known. The pain was indescribable. I remember just crying in bed, not eating despite my grandmother's efforts. I told her what my brother had done and she was shocked. She assured me she believed me and I was glad at least someone had my back. When the suspension ended, going back to school felt like stepping into a lion's den. The hallways were full of judgmental whispers and sidelong glances. The weight of the false accusations lingered in the air. My brother ignored me, acting like I didn't exist. He'd made some friends who believed his story and saw him as the victim. No matter how much I tried to tell my side, it fell on deaf ears. I was an outcast, labeled unjustly, and it stuck to me like a shadow. In the classroom, cafeteria, corridors, everywhere I went, everyone's eyes were filled with disdain and mistrust. I became a loner, keeping my head down, attending classes, having lunch alone, and going straight home. I had no friends, and it felt like no one wanted me there. My parents never called to check on me, but my grandmother kept reminding me it wasn't my fault and that life would get better. I graduated high school with good grades and looked forward to college, hoping for a better life. College was my first taste of freedom. No one watching over my shoulder, no comparisons, no competition. I met people, formed new friendships, and despite the emotional and physical scars, I aimed to enjoy the experience. During this time, I discovered I had a knack for content writing. I'd always wanted to be a writer, but wasn't sure it was sustainable. To earn some side money, I started freelancing, signed up on various sites, and landed jobs with prominent clients. I built a solid portfolio and maintained my side hustle throughout college, never asking my parents for money. When I graduated, instead of a corporate job, I realized I could pursue content writing full-time. It was going well, and I was finally doing something I loved. So thanks to having a bunch of different clients and building some awesome long-term relationships with them, I got roped into lots of their projects. Being a legit freelancer not only made me financially independent but also let me trot around the globe as a digital nomad. Traveling helped me heal from my past, though it wasn't a walk in the park. I saved every penny I could and bet on myself. Over the years, I've seen a ton of the world, but there's still so much left to explore. The only family I really had through all this was my grandma, and I absolutely adored her. She was pretty bummed when I moved out, but she got that I needed to be on my own. No matter how crazy my schedule was, I always made time for her. I'd visit her on weekends, and we'd share meals or just chill on the porch talking about everything from childhood memories to what's happening now. I'd spend entire afternoons helping her out with chores or going for walks in the park. Recently, I wrapped up one of the biggest projects of my career. I can't name the brand, but it was a huge deal writing blogs and product descriptions for them. After the project, I asked the team to leave positive reviews on my website, and they were happy to do it. I took screenshots of some reviews and posted them on Instagram. As I expected, a bunch of other content writers reached out to congratulate me, and some even shared my story to spread the word. That's how I started getting messages from strangers needing help with their websites. Even my relatives noticed and congratulated me. Then, out of nowhere, my old college principal reached out. He saw that I was killing it and wanted me to come back and talk to students about building a career as a content writer. I was super nervous because public speaking isn't my thing, but I decided to go for it. Standing in front of those eager faces and sharing my journey and the struggles I faced felt like my life had come full circle. It was so fulfilling to empower others and contribute to the writing community. Some clips from my speech even went viral on Facebook groups because people really resonated with them. It felt amazing to finally get some recognition for all my hard work. Last week, I was invited to speak on a local news channel about the benefits of content writing. They wanted me to share my journey and insights with their viewers. I was a bit nervous, but also pretty hyped. During the show, I talked about my experiences, the importance of client reviews, and how a simple appreciation post could open doors to incredible opportunities. Reaching a broader audience and inspiring more people in the field was both humbling and exhilarating. When it aired, I shared some clips on my Instagram because I was proud of being invited to a TV show. This is how my relatives and cousins started finding out how well I was doing. See, my parents never talked about me to anyone, so no one knew I was working with big brands and getting TV interviews. Word spread quickly in my family, and I guess the TV interview reached my parents too. A few days later, while I was working on another project with my phone on silent, I noticed 6 missed calls from my mom. I was honestly shocked to see her name because it had been so long since she called. I hesitated but called her back, and she picked up immediately. I asked if everything was okay, and she started congratulating me. My dad jumped in, asking about my life and well-being. I answered without thinking much of it until they started asking how much I was earning these days. I told them it was none of their business. My dad replied that we're family, so I shouldn't be shy about my income. I said I was doing well financially, and then my mom started talking about how hard their life was now. My eyebrows furrowed in suspicion. Here's pretty much how the conversation went. Mom: we're retired now and have been wanting to renovate the house. It's not in the best shape, but we have no savings left. Me: okay, Mom. Mom: your success has given us hope. After watching your TV interview, we thought maybe you could help us out with the renovations. Dad: after all, we're family. You shouldn't hesitate to share some of your earnings with us. We could really use your help. Me: are you joking? Why are you asking me for money when you haven't even talked to me for years? While I appreciate the congratulations, I'm not going to help you out in any way. My mom then started saying how I was being ungrateful and needed to support them as a family. My dad added that as my parents, they deserved to be looked after and that it was the least I could do. I was so pissed that I wanted to give them a piece of my mind. Then I got an idea: to teach them a lesson for thinking they could mooch off me after mistreating me all those years ago. I told them I'd help if they met my demands. My dad, curious, asked what they were. Without hesitation, I demanded that if they wanted my help, they had to publicly admit in front of our family and friends that my brother was the mastermind behind the... And that's where I left it, making them realize they couldn't just waltz back into my life with ulterior motives. So, there were these hurtful rumors spreading around that totally messed up my reputation. I wanted my brother to face the same public humiliation I did because of his lies and manipulations. Seriously, I needed everyone to take responsibility for their actions and acknowledge the pain they had caused me. When I brought up my impossible demand, my dad started questioning if it was really necessary. My mom chimed in, saying we could just have a private chat without dragging everyone else into it. But nope, I wasn't backing down. This condition was non-negotiable if they wanted any help from me in the future. Things got heated. My dad raised his voice, claiming it was my duty to help my family in need, and my mom made a last-ditch effort, urging me to do the right thing because of all the years they spent raising me. The irony was rich, since they had kicked me out, and it was actually my grandmother who raised me. I threw that fact right back at them. They got more and more agitated, but I stayed firm. If they wanted my financial help, they had to publicly acknowledge the truth and make my brother face the consequences. Since then, my parents have been calling me non-stop, but I'm ignoring them. I'm starting to regret even reaching out that day. Am I really a jerk for not helping my parents at all? Update 1. It's been a crazy week since I shared my story, and the support I've gotten from everyone has been amazing. Knowing I'm not alone means so much. I'm glad everyone agrees that I shouldn't engage with my parents or help them after everything they put me through. I gave them that ultimatum because I knew they couldn't do it. They love my brother too much, and even if they realized he lied, they'd never put him through what they put me through. Today, my brother sent me a nasty text after my parents tried calling me again, and I didn't pick up. He wrote, "Hey sis, it's been great not having you in my life. Mom and Dad told me about your crazy ultimatum. They'll never do it because they never loved you and won't hurt me. Sure, I lied about you 15 years ago, but it's been ages, so move on. You're unmarried and childless, so why not help them out with their house repairs? Be a better daughter." Reading his text felt like a stab to the chest. The audacity to dismiss my struggles and the conditions I set showed his complete lack of empathy. Trying to guilt-trip me by pointing out my unmarried and childless status was next-level insensitive. Fueled by frustration and a desire for justice, I decided to lay it all out. I wrote an email to my parents and close relatives, detailing my painful childhood and the unfair treatment I endured. I described the oppressive environment under my parents' roof and how they treated me compared to my twin brother. I mentioned the malicious rumor my brother spread in school that ruined my reputation and how my parents kicked me out. If not for my grandmother, I might have been homeless, or worse. I attached a screenshot of my brother's text where he admitted to lying about me. It was a clear confession, and I hoped it would expose the long-standing lies. I sent the email an hour ago, and I know chaos will ensue once they read it. I'll update you on their reaction soon. Update 2. It's been a month since my last update, and wow, things have exploded. My family went nuts after reading my email. My parents got slammed by relatives who had no idea about the favoritism and emotional abuse. Many family members reached out apologizing for not being there for me. My brother and parents bombarded me with abusive messages, so I got a lawyer to send them a cease and desist notice. It basically told them to back off, or they'd face serious legal consequences. That seemed to scare them straight because they stopped contacting me. My grandmother thinks I did the right thing by sharing everything and supports me 100%. She's the only person who truly matters to me, so I'm glad she's got my back. Update 3. It's been 2 months since my last update and things are going really well. My content writing business is booming, and I'm getting invites to speak at seminars and on podcasts, solidifying my position in my field. I'm as close to my grandmother as ever. I took a break from work recently to spend quality time with her. She's really into gardening now, and she taught me so much about different flowers and herbs. The moments we share, whether chatting or tending to her garden, are priceless. Kicking back and enjoying meals filled with deep talks or just hanging out together are some of my all-time favorite memories. Since my family got that letter from my lawyer, they haven't been in touch, which is honestly a relief. I'm glad they're keeping their distance. On a personal note, I've started therapy, and I'm really hoping it'll help me heal and get better. This is probably the last update for now.